You are listening to the E2C Network, where the Auburn family speaks.
Where you go, Auburn fans? Welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. Auburn had a tough one this weekend. We could not get our offense going, and man, defense just barely hung on. I mean, it was a rough one. We ended up losing to Texas A&M 20-3. Not a fun one to watch. Very frustrating overall. You could tell it in not only the players, but fans alike. Everybody was just frustrated with it. Jared, any kind of overall thoughts about this game and maybe even why it happened like this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever go back and watch film. I think this is one of those you'd have to watch film to know for sure. From my perspective, it looks like, okay, bad play calling. And I felt like Bobo had been doing a really good job. So simple answer to me is I didn't really like the play calling, but if you go back and look, it might have been good play calling. They just didn't execute. So without watching film, I'm not 100% certain, but nothing was working on offense, like nothing.
Yeah. Well, and nothing on offense seemed like it was working. I think it kind of trickles down to, and I think most people are going to put the blame on Bo, which I think Bo does deserve some of it. But I think there's two, in my mind, at least two other main issues. And I think we've suppressed some of them for a while, but they've definitely bubbled back up, is offensive line and wide receivers. We have had issues on offensive line with not only run blocking, but also pass blocking. Wide receivers, it's pretty obvious, like dropping passes, the most obvious. But, I mean, you saw Bo get, visibly, frustrated with some of the wide receivers for not lining up correctly or not running the right route. And so it's kind of that combination in my mind of, when this offensive line doesn't give you time to pass and Bo's, getting sacked multiple times and running for his life the other times, it's tough. Those are kind of my thoughts. I mean, where do you think you can make? I mean, besides play calling, which I think there's something to be said for play calling, though I don't think that's one of our main issues on offense, because Bobo at least had some positive, really good games in my mind. But besides that, what's kind of your thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, I think and I got into a debate with some people about, because I was knocking on Bo, and they made the point that, Bo's not the main issue, and he's not. My thing about it is it's O-line. O-line's the biggest issue, especially run blocking. They were bad pass blocking yesterday, but they're usually decent this year pass blocking. They were not yesterday. Wide receivers dropping passes. Here's why I may go Bo sometimes, because Bo is a 5-star and he is legit. Like, we've seen in the past few games what he can be.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know the O-line, their peak is a certain point. The wide receivers, their peak, Bo's peak is a little higher. And when he doesn't hit that, it's a little frustrating. It's not his fault. He's not getting help. But, you want to see a little more out of everybody. I would still put Bo probably third on the list. But if Bo plays well, because he had some underthrows. He had underthrows. He had overthrows. You could see a little more happy feet, a little more frustrated. But he got no help from anybody.
Yeah. And I think that also led to his frustration. And, I mean, it just reminded me of years previous when, I mean, there's a scene of Bo Nix and Seth Williams getting frustrated at each other last year. And that kind of reminded me the same, frame of mind that Bo Nix was in. He was just really frustrated. And I think maybe Bo Nix took things a little bit too much into his own hands. I mean, he had 2 straight fumbles, and you can't do that, and expect to win the game. And some of that may have been him trying to do a little too much. But Bo Nix is he'll want to take things into his own hands because he is a very capable 5-star guy. But sometimes you gotta just calm down, play with go back to your strengths, go back to the coaching that you've had, and let things ride. But we're kind of looking at this now with 2020 vision, looking back And I mean, I still think offensive line, wide receivers, and Bo Nix, in that order are kind of our issues. But I mean, I also want to kind of get your thoughts overall about, we're 3/4 of the way through this season. Where do you think we're at with kind of Brian Harsin in this program? Because, I mean, I personally had just a maybe. I'm an optimist at heart, but I thought maybe we might be able to run the table the rest of the season, and that would be incredible, obviously. But kind of had a realistic expectation of it's probably not going to happen. But where are you kind of at thinking about Brian Harsin, where he's got this program?
I think the biggest fear for any fan base is, are they going to become Nebraska and, currently Tennessee? Now, I think they're playing better, and I love my Tennessee fans, but I think they would even agree. And you're fearful of any change. Hey, I don't want it to get like that. I think Harsin has proven it's probably not going to become that. I think Harsin has basically taken the torch of Gus. Now, let me preface, if we beat Miss State and South Carolina. So I'm assuming we win those games. If he does, he's taking that torch of where really our floor is about 8-4 now. So floor's 8-4. That's a good season, brand new coach, playing with someone else's kids,
Yeah.
I will say it's a little disappointing because there were signs we were going to be better than that, after beating Arkansas and Ole Miss and LSU on the road. Looking back, though, and we'll see what happens this upcoming weekend with Ole Miss and A&M, I think Ole Miss and Arkansas were maybe ranked a little higher than they should have been. Ole Miss has fantastic offense, but as a team, I don't know that they were truly top 10. So maybe we were propelled a little higher than we should have been by winning those games.
It's possible.
Yeah, so I think there's a little bit of that going on. We are somewhere in the middle of almost losing to Georgia State and being number 12 in the first college football playoff. We're in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah. No, I could see us being 9-3, something like that under this team. If, somehow we figure out, which even we've shown our offense can get things together and play a good game and, get a good game going. Honestly, we haven't even touched about defense. I think defense, this is going to be a spectacular defense when we look back at it and how they were able to stop a lot of teams that had, lots of firepower on offense. And it's not going to show up in, yards per game. It's going to show up in points per game because Auburn's defense, has been really lights out. I mean, even this game, yeah, the score looks, pretty bad, 20-3. But if you think back on it, none of those were actually touchdowns that the defense allowed. Yeah, they allowed, the field goals, which, you should have potentially kept them further out. But the defense is doing most of its job. Were they perfect? By no means.
If you're giving up 12 points on defense, you got to expect to win the game. And not only that, they gave the Auburn the offense at the 50-yard line twice in the first half. That was even better than bend but don't break. They literally were stopping them, giving good field position to Auburn, and we did nothing with it on offense. I mean, yeah. I'll live all day long. In my mind, honestly, if you're 21 points or below, if that's all you're giving up in a game, and I think we're probably giving up 18 points a game in our last 4 SEC games, you got to expect to win that ball game.
Yeah.
So the defense, and listen, I thought we were terrible our first few games. I thought, this is not going to be good. I don't know if this Mason experiment is going to work. We definitely need to be better at certain places, but man, they've become the strength of our team right now, to the effect that I'm afraid we're going to look back and say, man, we wasted another good defense like we did in 2019.
Man, yeah, there's been some really spectacular defenses out there. I mean, yeah, the most recent one was that 2019 with Derek Mason, Marlon Davidson. Spectacular secondary as well. I mean, linebackers, everybody. You just saw strengths everywhere. And yeah, I mean, even if we go 8-4, it's all right. But if we went 9-3, I'm crediting that to our defense. Just continue to help us out, because I think they deserve a lot more credit than what they're given. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. I did also want to talk about, so the AP poll just got released. I know the college football playoff won't get released until Tuesday, but we saw that Auburn dropped from number 12 in the AP poll to number 16 in the AP poll. So only 4 spots dropped. I was maybe expecting a couple more spots than that, but I don't know. What's your thoughts on that? Like why you think we didn't drop as much?
A lot of things going on. There's some bad football out there right now. I mean, that's one of the things going on, that, you got, somebody's got to be 16, but also I think that, they recognize the schedule we've played. And even though I don't think Arkansas and Ole Miss at the end of the year are going to be top 10, they're very quality teams. LSU went in and almost beat Alabama, and we beat LSU at LSU. So I know people kind of like, yeah, but LSU's down this year. They are. They have the talent, obviously, to beat anybody on any given night. So I think that helps us a lot. I think 16's probably about right based off what everybody else in the country's doing and based off of the schedule we've had to play. And honestly, if you watch that game, now you could say if and that. But you're right. I mean, that game was essentially, if Bo doesn't make that fumble, it's what it winds up 12-3.
Mm-hmm.
Should have, worst case, been 12-6. You don't want moral victories, but it wasn't a blowout game.
Yeah, and then you like you said, you kind of factor in we make another field goal, which Anders has the capability of doing. Don't have the turnover. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the ifs of this because obviously that didn't happen, but it could have been closer. And maybe that's what also hurts is you have a chance, but your offense just can't even move down the field. And that seems to be part of our struggle. And not just this game. If you think back to the last 6 quarters that we played, they have had, I don't think any touchdowns. Is that right? I don't think we've scored a touchdown in the last 6 quarters.
We have to probably hold a very weird stat. Nobody said it. We have gone 6 quarters without giving up a touchdown, but we've also gone 6 quarters without scoring one. That's super weird. You would expect anytime you go 6 quarters without giving up a touchdown, you are sitting pretty good. And I almost brought that up last week, but I was like, nah, let's focus on the good half against Ole Miss. Everything's great. That was just a bad. But, you sit back and think about it. To not score a touchdown at all in the second half against Ole Miss, which is not a great defense, I don't know what's going on, man. I really don't. That should not happen, and not scoring a touchdown at all, like we did at A&M, shouldn't happen either.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, Georgia's a better defense than A&M, and if we should have had 21 points against Georgia. Like, there was absolutely major opportunities to have a minimum of 21 if we catch the ball or they call pass interference at the 2 and stuff like that. So why couldn't we get a touchdown against A&M?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. That was my exact thoughts. I mean, when your offense only has 226 total yards of offense, it's not a good day, obviously. But it's not like, a couple of times we were given good opportunities to drive down the field and score points, and we only put up 3. That's the part that still gets me. But I mean, I think they're, as you've seen over the last, but minus this game, 3 games looking back, I think Auburn has figured out some stuff on offense. Can they come back to those positive things? That's kind of the question mark in my head.
Hey Auburn fans, I want to take a quick timeout from this episode to bring your attention to something very special. Here at the E2C Network, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best content for Auburn fans out there. And best of all, it's free to you. But just because it's free doesn't mean there aren't costs, especially when you have a library of hundreds of podcasts, videos, blogs, and more. Many of you have reached out and asked how you can support this network in the past. Well, now I have your answer. It's called the E2C Network Booster Club over at patreon.com/E2C Network. There you'll find a membership monthly reward system where you can sign up for as little as $1 and get different perks at different tiers. Some of those perks include things such as apparel, eligibility to join us on future podcasts, recognition as an E2C Network booster, exclusive communications, and bonus content that is available nowhere else. If you love this network and want to help us keep producing podcasts like this one, please head on over to patreon.com/E2C Network to join the E2C Network Booster Club. You can also get there by going to our website, e2cnetwork.com/support. Whether you decide to join or not, we are still so appreciative that you would support us by just listening and being here, because each and every one of you is part of our E2C Network family. Well, that's it. Timeout's over. Let's get back into the episode.
I did want to talk about some of our running backs, specifically around Tank Bigsby, because he had a pretty good game. He had an average of 4.6 yards and he had 69 total yards. So he had a pretty good game. I think some of the teams are definitely teeing off on it seems like on Jarquez. And when Jarquez is in there, they're kind of limiting him. He's a freshman. Like, he's still trying to figure things out. But he's not as explosive as he was in the first half of the season, where it seemed like every run he was getting was just so explosive. And it almost seemed like he was the number one running back. And then Tank was like, come on, buddy. Like, I've been here a little bit longer than you. I'm going to take that spot back over. And I think Tank's done that pretty well. I know we bashed a little bit on the offensive line, but even with that, our Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter both average right around 4 yards a carry. It's not bad. That's actually pretty good when you look at it. So if we could do that more, that would be great. But I think we had to get to the pass a little bit too much.
I think it's the inconsistency. So we'll have a good run and then get stopped at the line. But I also think that's where a little bit of play calling to me, because I feel like Bobo should have stuck with them a little longer. I feel like we went away from them too quick.
Same.
And I feel like we did that against Penn State. And so I'm like, Tank had, and I know you can't run it every play, but Tank had a 10-yard gain right before the botched flea flicker. And then the next play was the fumble. So, like, Tank had a 10-yard run. Get up there and give it to him again. Like, maybe he's getting momentum going. Like, the pass game was not there. So, we were not scheming guys open. I would have liked to. The problem is our best players are our best offensive players are probably our running backs.
Yep.
And we just tend to go away from them sometimes when I know it wasn't great. They weren't gashing anything, but the pass game was not working. You got a 10-yard run, maybe a little momentum. Let's see what you can do again.
Right. Yeah. I love when a guy's hot. Give them the ball, because like they're seeing the field, they're seeing the defense well. Things are clicking with them. So like, why not keep going back to them? I think one of the things Bobo likes to do is, and he does a good job of it when it's working. It's working. He likes to spread the ball around, and it's again evident. Like, we pass the ball to lots of different people. We hand the ball off to a lot of different people. But sometimes obviously I'm not saying ride the guy until he's injured or whatever, like we did, with Kerryon Johnson a few years ago. But, there's a time for riding a player a little bit, to get you that win, that extra yard, whatever it is. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on kind of our run game. I did like Shivers on third down. The dude knows how to get to the first down mark. It's just uncanny. Like, the dude, you give him, you say, get here, you get this 8 yards on a third down. He somehow finds a way to do it. I love to see that. He kind of reminds me of like Schenker in a way. Like, Schenker just knows how to find that first down line. And when you see Schenker catch the ball, he's going to get that first down. And it's pretty cool. I love to have those kind of guys in there. I did want to talk about some of the wide receivers, because some of them had some really bad games. The two that kind of come to mind for me, Kobe Hudson, Shedrick Jackson. I think both of them had absolutely terrible games. They were not getting open. They were dropping balls when they were passed to them. It just was not a good day for either of them. And those are two guys in my mind that should be, not necessarily always the leaders in the wide receiver room, but they should be on up there. And yet they were down towards the bottom of our wide receivers this game. What's kind of your thoughts on where our wide receivers are at after this game?
Yeah, they took 2 steps back, man. I mean, Kobe Hudson, he got bailed out on one of his drops early. It might have been first half, I don't know, but it was kind of a crossing route. Probably would have been a decent gainer. Drops it. Well, luckily, Bobo dialed up a nice little screen where we sent 3 essentially tight ends and a lineman out wide, and Shivers was behind him, and they just escorted him for 10 yards. So that kind of bailed him out. But if you go back and think about it, like that's having to waste more plays. Like we should already had the first down. Bobo had to kind of maybe give a play away just to get the first down. So, and then he drops one in the second half, and then he had a false start. And yeah, Shedrick should be, and I'm not trying to knock anybody, but Shedrick should really be like a 4th option, and we're kind of having to use him to have like a 2nd option. So I think that kind of tells you where we are as at the receiving group right now.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think this might have been our 2nd game this season where a tight end has been our leading receiver. Again, that kind of shows you where the wide receiver room is at. Which I think this kind of leads me into another thought. So Jared, like, I'm just thinking, down the road, we're seeing, a theme of wide receivers being, just not as consistent as they need to be. Is there, a way to fix that down the road? And if so, what do you think it is?
It's recruiting, and I think, we're big time after a guy in Oregon. It's between us and Oregon, and he's a 6'3", stud. So it'd be nice to land him, but you can fix that also in JUCO or transfer portal. You can fix the receiving issue in 1 year if you get the right guy. The offensive line, offensive tackles, I don't think you can fix that in 1 year. So I don't know what you do there, because to be honest with you, the group we have isn't great, and they're all seniors.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means for next year. Maybe it's a good thing, but yeah, like that's a 2-year project. So I mean, case in point, I don't remember the guy's name. We landed a 4-star. We got him from Tennessee when they had their coaching issue. We got a 4-star offensive tackle from North Carolina last year. Hadn't heard his name all year. He probably hadn't played because you're developing at that position.
Yeah.
So anybody we get in this recruiting class, that's for 2023.
Yeah.
And so that's not a quick fix, and I don't know what you do with that if I'm being 100% honest.
Yeah.
What do you think you do?
I mean, your suggestions were kind of where I was thinking. Get a new hot wide receiver out of high school, or go the JUCO or transfer portal route. I mean, that's kind of your way to do it. And credit Harston a little bit. He already saw that ahead of time, and he picked up Demetrius Robertson, and we got somebody who has honestly made an impact from essentially day one on this wide receiver room. Even though it's not he's not our by any means our best wide receiver, but he's been good. He's been on the field. He's been doing things and made a positive impact in a lot of ways. It's just we got to have other guys that, in my mind, you got to have at least your number 1 and number 2 guys, and I just can't put a finger on it who that number 1 and number 2 is in the wide receiver room. Let's switch just a little bit. So let's talk about some positive things that happened on defense, because I've already said it. I think defense did pretty good. I know obviously we lost, and defensive players, even when they're interviewed after the game, they said we didn't do enough. I mean, I think there's still room to grow on defense. But I think what you saw was the defense did the classic bend but don't break as much as they could, and only allow really those 12 points on offense. That's not too bad. That's really not too bad in the grand scheme of things. Any other kind of thoughts that you had overall about our defense and what they did against Texas A&M?
Yeah, they played fantastic, really. And if we can find a way to eliminate it, it was a very similar. I joked last week about we either stop them at the line or in the backfield, or they gain 10 yards on a run. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, there was times we were swarming to the ball, they couldn't get a yard. And this is why you stick with the run. Credit A&M, they kept sticking with it. And those guys finally found some creases, had a couple big runs, and that also played a big part, in melting the game away. But all in all, no defensive player should hang their head on this. I mean, this was not their fault at all. Like I said, if you give up 12 points, you could say 14, I guess, if you count the 2-point conversion. But again, they wouldn't have been having that if it wasn't for the fumble. So, yeah, you give up 12 points. I mean, you got to expect to win that ball game.
Yeah. Oh, same. I mean, like, you hold any team in 2021 to 12 points on offense, and you think, definitely y'all are definitely gonna win. That didn't happen. Our offense was obviously the weak point in this game, and it was glaringly obvious.
Let me just tell you how hard what they did is. The last time Auburn didn't allow an offensive touchdown to a top 15 team on the road was 2003. We beat number 7 Arkansas 10-3. So, yeah, that's they just did something that hadn't been done since 2003.
Which again kind of comes back to your point. I hope we don't. I hope this great defense that even under a first-year head coach doesn't go to waste. And I think if we can figure out a couple things on offense, I think at least it'll be something. Maybe even have a 9-10 win season. It's still in the cards. It's still possible. All right, let's talk about special teams just for a little bit. Not by any means the best special teams. I know, man. Like, not the best performance on special teams by any means. The Anders Carlson made his 32-yarder, missed another field goal. He had good kickoffs, but not Anders' best game. I will point this out, and I was super impressed with him, except for maybe one other special teams thing. But Ladarius Tennyson, I mean, I was super impressed with him today. He just had a great mindset about what he needed to do, and he did it. The only thing that I will say about him was actually on special teams, because on special teams he hit that punt returner who had fair caught it, and he also had a false start on a punt, which that's pretty rare, I feel like, especially for a guy like him who's kind of a gunner. But defensively, Ladarius Tennyson did great, so I'll at least say that. So I remember last week your guy was Oscar Chapman. Well, Oscar Chapman had himself a pretty good day. I mean, he had that long 63-yarder, averaged 45.7 yards per punt, had 7 punts, totaling 320 yards. I mean, he was out there punting a lot, and he did his job, and he did it well. I mean, I knew when he was on the field, I didn't really have to worry. He was going to, kick it 45, 50 yards. It was going to be great. So I was impressed with him.
I hated seeing him so much, but yeah, he did a good job. He did his job when he was out there.
Yeah. Any other thoughts about special teams before we kind of wrap things up?
No, I don't know what's up with Carlson. I mean, he's not been his normal self this year. I even had a gut feeling when he went out there. I'm like, this isn't going to be good. I don't know why I felt that way. Easy to say now, but and that probably didn't cost us the game. Although in a low-scoring affair like that does probably change the way the rest of the game goes a little bit. Maybe we don't have to do the flea flicker stuff. Maybe that doesn't lead to the other play that's a fumble. You never know.
Yeah.
But irregardless, you need to make those field goals. And I don't know. His stats aren't great this year, and I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like, it's not. I mean, last year he completed 90% of his his field goals. But really, the only ones he missed one in the 35-yard range, and then one that was a 50-yarder. That was it. And this year, he's struggling at around 74% completing on field goals. So yeah, there seems to be something like just slightly off, which is kind of frustrating, because you would have thought a guy that's so consistent most of the time, his senior year, he's having these issues. So. All right, Jared, before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at @JAY_. it's always great to be an Auburn Tiger and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.